Welcome, Jack Theology. It's good to be back
Yep,
for
back
another
again,
week,
man. Good to see you, Matt.
another episode. Yeah, it's great to be here, and we are two more weeks here of summer for us, and then we're back to school. You're
We've been in school for like a year.
yeah.
I don't know.
I
I don't know
love it.
whether congratulations are in order or not, but for me, I'm very thankful that the kids are back in school. But now we've got, open houses, parent-teacher conferences, sports
Yeah,
meeting kickoffs. So I'm like, I don't know. I think actually,
practice. Yeah, practice has started for us. So mornings, the kids have been going to. Well, the older two have been going to cross country practice. So yeah, it's funny how far different our school calendars are, but yeah, we'll be joining you soon.
well, the Lord's blessings to you.
Yeah, so this week, big week on the interwebs, and it is connected to the political season which we're in.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna say I was trying to think about what was the catalyst, for all of this. What kind of set off all the conversation about abortion? I think you're right. I think it's the Democratic National Convention going on, having gone on this week, and then what was it last week? It came out that they were going to be offering abortions and vasectomies
yeah,
at the convention, and I think it just kind of catapulted this, which was fake news anyway. I
yeah,
think it kind of catapulted this conversation into the forefront, and there's no conversation that Christians love to talk shit over more than abortion.
yeah. I think
Thank you, moral majority. Thank you, 1980s. Thank you, 1990s. Thank you, 2010s.
yeah,
Thank you, Jerry Falwell. Thank you, Pat Robertson. Thank you, Ronald Reagan.
I think yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The post about the free abortions and vasectomies is really what set it off. I did, national convention, but I feel like that's our role. That's our niche in the podcast world. Is we talk about some Jack theology that's coming up in the news, and so this came up, and both you and I had different posts about it. I think you also just summarized really well, kind of ingest the where it started. Why are we here with abortion? I mean, um, Kristen Dumez does a great job sharing that history, but Jerry Falwell really is the one, a big one, big one. I think Francis Schaeffer is another one that brought the abortion issue to the forefront in national political
Yeah,
scene to
evangelicals
gain
were not
votes. Yeah,
evangelicals were not opposed to most abortions. It wasn't on the radar. It wasn't a huge theological issue for them. Not an opposition up until the late 70s. Catholicism as well, which a lot of people think
yeah,
of Catholicism as being, having been and always been pro-life by definition, meaning 100 teetotal against abortion. That's not true either. Even go back just a few decades, and that wasn't true of Catholicism. So our memories are short, and our theologies are increasingly fundamentalist and like insane on this topic.
yeah. It's the evangelical vote was split back in the. In fact, I Jimmy Carter won as a Democrat the evangelical vote back in what 76, and of course Democrats traditionally are pro choice. I'm not sure what it was then, but I do know heading towards the 1980 election, Reagan and his team was trying to figure out how to unify the evangelical vote. Jerry Falwell gave him a great idea.
Yeah,
Let's tell
how do you get the
everybody,
Christians away from Carter and the Democrats? How do you do
yeah,
it? And they found it, right?
yeah, they found the way, and they've been doing it ever since. And kudos to the political machines. They did a great job. And it was
And
funny when the Supreme Court, overturned Roe v. Wade, which you and I both grew up, praying that one day that would be overturned, right? And it seemed like Mitch McConnell, especially, was very sad that it was overturned because he had lost his leverage to, empower his base, and I think he was at a loss for how to empower them going forward. Now they just circled back again and saying that Kamala Harris is going to, reverse that decision, and so they've continued to jump on the abortion.
Yeah,
train.
they have no other issue they have found other than abortion in order to unite and motivate evangelical and a larger majority of the Christian vote than any other topic does. And back the moral majority. I mean, they tried HIV and AIDS. They tried gays, LGBT. They tried racism, and none of those things united people in mass within Christendom like abortion did. And so that became the leverage. That became the stick, the carrot.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
Are we not? Are we not already into I thought we were already in the deep end. Tell me we're not going further, Matt. Tell me we're not going further. All right, let's go. I'm hanging on. Where are we going? Let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, we're just giving some background. I don't know that many people could argue with it. Maybe, well, they would argue with certain points of it, but where they would argue is they would say, "No, Matt, this is the biblical view. This is why we make this the one issue, because this is so biblical, right?" When in reality, it was a political scheme, strategy to unite a vote, and so, that's where we get into it. Is it the question that I asked this week? Is it really biblical? And it's something that I've studied for a while. This might be the first time I've really gone public with it. You went pretty public. You went viral with your post. And so is abortion? Yeah, let's pause there. Sean, was it? Sean. Sean.
Yeah. I don't know how to say his last name. Yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah. He
Sean Bethel.
He didn't QT it. He screenshotted it. Yeah, and put it out there. I didn't think this was a revolutionary statement. The Bible never says abortion is sin. I didn't say you couldn't be pro-life. I didn't say that you couldn't come to a pro-life stance utilizing ethics and morals on the basis of the Bible. I didn't say any of those things. All I simply said was the Bible literally doesn't say abortion is a sin. And yep, it got under the skin of some people.
Yeah, you got like 1 million views, and that's not even counting like the screenshot views.
Yeah, all the people who steal it and then use it so that I don't get any credit. Hey, whatever. All's fair in love and war, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so people just assume, this is what I've learned over the years, is they just assume that the Bible says that abortion's a sin. They assume that somewhere the Bible says that you should be against it, and it simply isn't the case. When you look at the Bible, I think even Sean, his quote to your screenshot was, "Thou shalt not murder."
Yeah.
Right.
Thou shalt not kill. Yeah, which, I mean, let's be honest, it's maddening, right, that the Bible doesn't, just clearly say one way or the other on this. And it's maddening the Bible does not clearly say on a lot of topics one thing one way or the other. And oftentimes the Bible is kind of set against itself. It kind of gives both arguments on both sides sometimes. And that's maddening and frustrating, but you and I, whenever we come to scripture, let's just accept whatever is there and then go from there. But let's not lie to ourselves or lie to other people or pretend that something's there that's not there.
Yeah. So let's start with the ancient Hebrew. I mean, I think you put this in there, a follow-up tweet, which is true. That the ancient Hebrew view of life began at first breath, right?
First breath, or the quickening, one or the other. First breath, quickening, whenever you feel the baby move. Essentially, that's the quickening. And I think historically, Catholicism and Christianity has understood that as being when life, essentially, ensoulment begins at the quickening, when it becomes highly questionable whether or not abortion is acceptable, and whether or not it's actually considered life would be at the quickening. In fact, the Didache it's what, 70 AD, somewhere around the 70 to 100 AD, the first kind of Christian, or the oldest Christian writing that we have, mentions abortion. And people, pointing to that, thou shalt not kill, it says in there, and then mentions abortion after it. But again, what they're talking about, and we know this because of the way the church fathers write about abortion, is that they saw that life essentially begins at quickening, and thou shalt not kill does not apply before the quickening, before you feel the baby move. But go back older than that, traditionally, Old Testament Hebrew times, it was first breath. And that makes a lot of sense whenever you think about Genesis and this idea of God breathed into Adam. What does the text say? It says the breath of life.
I just pulled it up here. Genesis 2:7. Yeah, and God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being.
Yeah.
And so that's
that's theological, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
so whenever we say, when does life begin? We say now life begins at conception. Well, okay. Whenever the text of the Hebrew scriptures were written, whenever thou shalt not kill was written, life did not begin at conception. There was no concept of that. Life began, as you said it, at first breath, and man became, what was it? You said that Genesis 2 said it becomes a living soul. So, it makes complete sense, I think, whenever you're actually looking at the text, to say first breath is whenever life begins, probably whenever ensoulment happens. And so Judaism, the majority opinion in Judaism for millennia, since then all the way to
even
today,
to this day,
it's been abortion is acceptable. In fact, you look at all religions, the only religion that has a majority issue with abortion is white Protestant Christianity, evangelicalism. I mean, white evangelicalism. And they're alongside Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're alongside Mormons. Those are three. Evangelicalism, white evangelicalism, Mormons, and Jehovah's Witnesses. Those are the three. But whenever you look at Catholicism and all other religions, the majority opinion on the adherence to those religions is that abortion is acceptable up until a certain point. And I think the real argument is when is that point where it's acceptable or when it's not acceptable. But whenever you look at the data, after 20 weeks, it's only 1% of abortions are after 20 weeks, which is incredible whenever you look at that. So this idea that people want to abort kids after they're born, like, come on, that's ridiculous. Shut the hell up. That's not.
And let's.
Anyway, okay, I know we've got far afield from where you were at first breath, right? But
I mean that sums it up well. And so we even see a development of let me even explain it. Like, early view was the first breath, and over time it became the quickening, when you could feel that the baby was present in a womb. So clearly we've moved some, and it's interesting because a lot of evangelicals, especially fundamentalists, and we saw this week, will adamantly fight you that the Bible does not say what it is saying. So in Exodus is probably the most damning verse for the pro-lifers that think the Bible is pro-life through and through. Exodus chapter 21 talks about if a baby in the womb is accidentally killed, what is the punishment?
If it's miscarried.
In the English translations we use miscarried, which most of these translations we have are not going to use the word, abortion, right? Because these are very pro-life translators. Again.
Yeah, there's a very strict line. If you look at all of the English translations, there is a divide in the language that they use in that text. And you can tell where the divide is. The divide is along lines of people who would end up probably being a proponent of abortion or understanding life begins at first breath, or those who are pro-life. And so the language of the Bible has been changed in this. And there are a lot of people on both sides who actually use this text in order to support their argument. And, it's because that the English has been badly translated here in a lot of translations in order to imply that it's saying, no, life does begin at conception, and it is saying that this is a full personhood murder of the baby during this altercation in Exodus 21. But when you look at the Hebrew and you look at the way this is understood in Judaism, that is absolutely a bold-faced lie that the translators have.
Well, they treat the baby or the fetus differently than a full grown or born human. So when you read it, if if they kill the person, right, the punishment's death. But if they just kill the baby or fetus, however you want to define it, uh, they can get off with just a fine,
Yeah,
right?
it's adjudicated. The value is
It's
adjudicated, which means that the fetus is property. The woman is the woman would have been considered property as well in a patriarchy, but it would have been a full life, and so that's where
yeah,
the end of that text, the Taliatic justice comes in, where it's like eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but that's for the woman. For the child, it's not that. For the
no,
fetus, if that's miscarried, it's value is adjudicated, which means it's not considered full life.
yeah, and
And we're what, like a
that's the
few
point. I
chapters
mean,
after the Ten Commandments. So whenever you use "thou shalt not kill" and say, "No, that applies to aborting something that's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 7 weeks old," no, just read a couple of chapters later in that exact same book, and your argument is vacated.
yeah, and it's not even really debatable. I mean, you can do some word salad. You can do some read this English translation. But even when you do that, you can't get past the fact that they're seen as unequal. And so, why is that? It's just the view that the Bible had at that time, and so it actually makes to me the pro-lifers who stick to this, oh, the Bible is against abortion. It makes them look poor. It makes them look like they don't have a strong argument. When in fact, I think if you argue from science and you argue from things we know, um, it would be a better argument to say, well, the scriptures, those writing the scriptures didn't know fully what we know today, which is why they wrote it that way, which most fundamentalists have a hard time with that because then you're questioning what we talked about last week a lot is inerrancy. Is the Bible inerrant? And here's an example of where it's not inerrant, right? It just doesn't fully know.
It
We
doesn't help the
know,
fundamentalists to adhere to the text here,
yeah,
and so they're going to avoid adhering to the text
yeah.
on this one.
And it's interesting too because I grew up in that environment and I never heard this passage, right? It wasn't until the last 4 or 5 years actually that I actually read this passage and studied it to any substance. And so I wonder, excuse me, I wonder why that is. I wonder why I wasn't told about this passage. I wonder why we never studied it when we talked about our worldview as Christians in this world and we talked about abortion. We never looked at this passage. So, and even if you Google it, this passage, I think Desiring God has like a half a page blog post about it, kind of
Really, that's all.
just kind of kicking it away, like, oh, this isn't saying what they say it's saying. Um, and so, yeah, it's problematic. I guess if you have the view as fundamentalists have of inerrancy, then you have to try to explain it away somehow. But don't try to explain it away the first time you've read it. I got that a lot this week. I know it was the first time people read it. They were shocked to see that. And then they come at me 5 minutes later and they're all of a sudden they're an expert and they're telling me I'm wrong in how I'm interpreting it. And it's like, well, you don't do that. Go spend some time with it. Go read some studies on it beyond just your own echo chamber favorite guy, and actually research it a little bit and then come back to it. So there's that. Then there's a Numbers 5 passage, which is a little bit more debatable. There's a little bit more debate swirling around it, but there seems to imply the scriptures give an example. I'm not sure if it's exactly describing something that happened, but the scriptures is giving an example of a time when it would be appropriate for a priest to perform an abortion on a baby who had been adulterously conceived,
Yeah.
and as an action. And so we see even to the detail of the poison, the tonic that the priest was to develop and give to force. Again, it uses a lot of the English translations uses as a forced miscarriage, which would be what we call an abortion. There's some debate around that text about whether or not that actually ever happened. Um, um, and so, but it's there. There is a suggestion that perhaps it did happen, and it was at least written down as something that was an option for Israel. So another example, I think, where again, just being consistent with this idea that life didn't begin at conception, that life began somewhere else down the line, in a pregnancy or birthing time.
Yeah, I think the Exodus 21 passage is, I mean, it's pretty airtight in what's going on there. That it is not considered killing if a fetus miscarries. It's not considered under the law of thou shalt not kill. It's not an eye for an eye. It's not a tooth for a tooth. There's not full personhood status there. We know that from the history of Judaism, but if you're only solely going to look at the biblical text, it's clear. The Numbers 5, you're right. There's a little more dissonance there, in that we're not certain what's going on there. It seems to indicate that, yeah, there is some sort of a forced abortion, tonic miscarriage that happens in that passage, but it's a little grayer. It's a little more difficult, I think, to understand. It's debatable, and that's okay. And I think that this is something that evangelicalism, that Christianity has lost, is just the concept of it's debatable. And I think that this is what begins to be really frustrating about a lot of what's going on in evangelicalism right now, is that nothing is debatable. And you come to a topic like abortion, and there's you either agree to the hardline fundamentalism on one side, or you're out of the camp. You're out of the kingdom, and that's just not the way the Bible is written. It's not the purpose of the Bible, and it certainly does not seem to be the heart of God in how to come at faith.
Yeah, I think, well, to me, it seems obvious that many folks have been manipulated into just ignoring the rest of the political system for this one issue. I mean, I hear it all the time. I'm a one issue voter, and every Christian should be a one issue voter.
Until Trump changed.
And that's super. Yeah, and that's super problematic, because then you ignore all the other atrocities. And for a long time, until Trump, the Republican Party was good about like putting on a good moral face with their leaders, and then jumping on the abortion thing, and then doing a lot of other stuff that isn't really biblical. I mean, it's some of it's not even arguable whether or not it's biblical or not.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the reason why I think pro life is a misnomer. Just say anti-abortion. You're not pro life.
Yeah, well, exactly. We're pro life until they're born, and then we ignore every other issue in the world. We don't care if they die after that, but we'll get them born. So, which is just so hypocritical. Which when we think about, and part of this is like when we think about being a witness, like I made a comment to somebody yesterday. It's like what you're saying to me then is when I read a scripture, I see 2 + 2 = 4, and you're telling me it equals 5. If I squint hard enough, then it equals 5, and that looks so like ignorant, dumb to a non-believing world, to a world not people not following Jesus, not in Christianity. When we think about our Christian witness, like it's a poor witness to have that approach, and it's a poor witness to be so hypocritical to call ourselves pro-life, and then in the same breath, jump on the train with all these other issues that are completely anti-life. It's just such a discrepancy, and looks so poorly on people. And it's a reason that we did it it's a few months ago, and I was remembering this as I was thinking about this today, that one of the reasons why people have left the church is over this issue. They've said because of this, one, I think it was like in one of the studies, Barna studies, was like the top 3, like number 3 reason people left the church is because hypocrisy with politics of the one party, one issue thing. And so it's to me, it's obvious why that is. And so if we just be honest, like I think a better approach would be, yeah, the scripture says that, but here's why. It's they just didn't know back then what we know today, and scientifically we know that if you believe, there's scientific studies that life begins at conception, or life begins the first heartbeat, life begins down the road when they're viable human, they could be born and live outside the womb, whatever that is. I mean, there's debate in that, but at least you're being honest that, like, hey, here's where I'm at scientifically. Here's where I believe life begins, and so once that life begins, we want to protect that life. I think there's value in that. I think I have nothing wrong with people that argue that. I think this is a very nuanced social issue, because then there's a flip side of protecting the woman, giving the woman a right over her body, especially there's lots of incidents that I think women could be justified in wanting to abort a baby, and we hear them every political season. I don't need to list them of what they are, and so to me, to take it, you look a lot healthier, you look a lot like more mature if you take the argument out of the scriptures and you put it in a social setting, which is an issue that needs to be put in a social setting, and apply biblical principles to it. And part of the application of biblical principles to it is talking in a healthy way that I might be wrong about this, you might be right. These are issues that are debatable. The idea that a Christian can't be or can't be pro-choice, has to be pro-life, is just, to me, just, you lose me when you say that. I'm done with you. I'm done with the conversation. It's pointless to even continue on. And that's where a lot of people are. Well, you're not a Christian if you believe this, and I'm sure some people are calling anathema. By
you're not a Christian if you're not a Christian if you kill babies, or if you vote for a party that kills babies.
Yeah,
I'm like, do you understand how many babies that you kill through your economic policies? Do you understand how many babies that you kill through your policies on gun control? Do you understand how many babies that you kill through suicide of LGBTQ people who you lobby against? Let's talk about killing babies. Let's talk about killing people's babies. What was that you had to say about not being a Christian if you vote for things or stand on issues that kill babies? Like, come on, shut up.
Yeah. Or we get mad at politicians who want to give folks in poverty free lunches at school. Like, really?
Yeah.
You don't. So we want them to be born, but we want to starve them when they are born. Unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, we don't really want them to be born. I mean, they really don't.
No.
They don't want to be conceived in the first place.
Yeah,
they don't want their parents to exist, to have been able to conceive them.
And let's be honest.
Not even thinking that 25% of the people who are sitting in the pews next to you have had an abortion.
Well, yeah, that's
and the evangelical church probably is a higher number who have had an abortion, because it is less acceptable to carry a child that is illegitimate or at a season that seems to be unreasonable or unhelpful. And so I was looking for the stats. I don't know, but my guess is that within evangelicalism, the honest answer to the abortion rate, if people were being honest, answering the question, is probably higher than the national average, because it is less acceptable to carry them. But it's at least 25%.
I would agree with that that idea. I think it's an educated guess. Well, and when we forget, like, the women who are in that position where they feel like they have to have an abortion, I would say, probably an accurate speculation, 95 to 99% of women who have abortions aren't doing so because they're lazy or because they just want to go out and party, all that stuff you hear. It's because they're in an impossible situation that many times, like you just pointed out, evangelicals, those pro-lifers, have put them in through the culture
creating the situations that drive abortions, which is why abortions go down statistically during Democrat president terms and stay the same usually, and don't go down during Republican terms. You know what happened to the abortion average since Roe v. Wade? Through the roof.
Yep. No, it's true.
Because we don't really care. We don't really care I can say this as being an evangelical most of my life. We don't really care as evangelicals about ending abortion. We care about using it as a leverage piece to win
Mm.
and to harm other people. If we really cared about unborn children, there are far better tools and things that can be done for us to save far more lives than the rhetoric that we're doing, the things that we're saying as Christians and evangelicals, and doing half-assed things like Roe v. Wade and IVF and preventing access. We just don't. We don't truly care because it's a political issue, and the people who are listening to our political influencers aren't telling us those things. Why? I wonder why.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid we're going to vote for someone else or something else other than them.
Mm-hmm. And they hate it that the lowest abortion rates in the last 20, 30 years, like you said, it was when Obama was president. They hate it. Obama, his policies actually prevented, and I think the biggest one that Obama did to prevent abortions was give everybody health care. So um, women felt safer that they could have a baby and not be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt or have to go live on the street because they would be provided for. And you know what's crazy is Republicans hate that the universal health care that Obama pushed that actually helped their cause of pro-life, of saving babies, but they hate it. And that is one of the big reasons why I deconstructed right there. Because when I saw that firsthand and heard those things firsthand, that it was evil. I was told it was evil that we should want universal health care. And I said, but it's helping prevent abortions and it's actually promoting our pro life cause. And I was just ridiculed. So, yeah, crazy, sad, and heartbreaking to see that. Um, and I think people need to reevaluate this whole. I look, it's a very nuanced topic, and I
It
err on the
is.
side of pro life. I err on the side of pro life. Like
Yeah,
I want,
neither you nor I want
yeah,
babies to be killed. Neither you nor I
yeah,
want abortions to
yeah,
go up. I don't ever want anybody to be in a position where they're having to choose between whether or not they should get abortion for any other reason other than medical necessity. But that decision can't be mine. That decision has to be made in the context of the situation in which they're in, with the wisdom from their own medical experts, from their own family, from their own religious community and clergy. Mind your own damn business. Tim Walls, I think, is a little
yeah,
right whenever he says that. Mind your own damn business. It's
yeah,
not your responsibility to understand or to know why. And if you want to do something that's helpful. And where Christianity is on this conversation is not, it's not helpful, and the data and the stats over decades bear that out. So what are we doing here? What are we doing? And the Bible doesn't even support it. Let's be honest, the Bible doesn't support it. The Bible doesn't
yeah,
support this idea that abortion is a sin. The Bible doesn't support this idea that it is wrong. So I think you can make an argument that life is precious and life is important, and so yeah, let's take care of the women and let's take care of the mothers and let's take care of the families and create an environment where, as you said, they're able to support, to sustain, to give birth, to have healthy families and situations for as many people as possible. Why aren't we doing that?
yeah. Makes too much sense. That's why the
It's a lot easier to just post "Thou shalt not kill" and then vote R.
yeah, yeah. It's more simplistic. It's not nuanced. We don't like to live in nuance. We like to live in black and white. It's easier. And yes, I'm calling you lazy if you just live in a black and white world. That if this, then this. Yes, you need to grow up a little bit. It's not all about two sides, two things, two issues, two ways. It's there's lots of ways, and especially in this topic. A lot of the verses. Let's talk about a little bit some of the verses that pro-lifers will throw at us. You know. before I knew you, I formed you in your mother's womb. Um, that's the biggest one I see, and there's a lot to that.
I knit you together, right?
It has nothing knit you
Is,
together. Yeah,
is that one? I know
it,
there's one in Jeremiah and there's one in David. One says, I think I knew you or I
yeah,
formed you, and the other one's like, I knit you together.
knit
And I'm
you in
like,
your mother's womb. Yeah.
let's talk about knitting needles. Like, okay, if you're taking that as literally, yeah. What I mean, what do you do with those passages though? I mean, it's one of the classic defense passages, that David and Psalm and in Jeremiah, that have been given to people to utilize to say that abortion is wrong. It's a sin. What do you do?
Well, I mean, first of all, it doesn't say anything about not aborting a baby. Um, it.
I
I
guess
mean,
that's
if
true.
you
I
if
mean,
you look at
God knew lots of people, and if you read the Old Testament, He's killing kids and parents and
well,
ethnicities left
that's
and
what
right.
I
I
was
mean,
gonna say.
I guess I mean,
Yeah,
let's be honest. If you're reading the Old Testament, like God doesn't just condone, God actually like enacts, God commands and places the death and destruction of children and women, and you have to do something with that. So I guess you're right. Whenever we
well,
come to this, just because God knows you in the womb doesn't mean.
you're gonna survive. Well,
I mean,
like,
okay, I mean, it sounds
yeah,
awful, but let's be
yeah,
honest,
but
right?
like
I mean, if we're
that's
if
the
we're
view
gonna
of
be
God's
honest with what the
sovereignty.
text says, we've got to be honest with what the text says, right?
Yeah, that's a big view of people have of God's sovereignty. That Jacob I have loved, and Esau I've hated. So okay,
Now
well,
take
perhaps
Isaac up
those
the
that
mountain
didn't serve.
and kill him.
Yeah, yeah. So to me, though, like that's not my view of God's sovereignty. Uh, but a lot of those folks, that's their view. So to me, that's the easy response: is well, this is the God you believe in, and so why wouldn't He be able to do that? Why wouldn't He? And so He chooses some to be damned to hell, and so why wouldn't He choose some to not make it out to have their first breath? So that's a way I look at it. And then more the way I look at those passages is they're talking to specific people who are actually alive and are breathing, and it's like God just saying like I knew you from the time before eternity passed, and saw you develop in the womb, which
I
every
mean, I
human
guess that's
does develop in the
yeah.
womb,
I mean,
right?
I guess
Like
that's an
we do
argument
develop.
too. I mean, just because God said to Jeremiah, "I knew you in the womb," before or whatever, it doesn't mean that He knew everybody in the womb, right? I mean, I mean, you're right. These are the nuances, though, that you have to. You may look at that and say, "Well, that's the most ridiculous argument that I've ever heard." Well, these are the things that you have to work through because it's not. It's not as easy as you want it to believe. This passage wasn't written to be an abortion passage. So why was this passage written? And is there any application to it or not? And how much so?
Yeah. Um,
And I mean, it's
I don't.
to me, it's like it's it's. I knit you together in your mother's womb. Okay, so God's literally out there with His knitting needles. Um, no, okay, so it's not literal. So then what
But
what is it? It's poetic.
we,
Okay.
yeah, it's poetic. But we all did go through the womb, right? Like every human who was born went through the womb. So like you could genuinely say that about every human that's alive today. Like God knew you in the womb, which is true. Like that's where you're developed as a human. And so the question is like, when do you become fully human, right? And in the scriptures, we see they didn't believe you know babies were fully human until first breath, and then over time, you pointed out the Didache, they said they were fully human when we could feel them, right? The quickening, and so uh, and now there's a lot of debate on when a fetus, a baby, is fully human, and so. But there is definitely a time, all of us, no matter where we're at in this debate, there is a time when there the baby's not fully human. If it's even when the egg and and the embryo are separated still, and they're moving towards each other, we would say they're not fully human, although maybe some would. I don't know. But God still knew you when you were sperm and an egg, right? Um, but we would say most 99% of people would say that's not a human yet. The sperm is not human. The egg is not human. But God knew us then. Um, so
You just kind of blew
I
my
don't know.
mind. You blew
I
my
don't.
mind.
Oh.
Yeah, no, you blew.
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
I
no,
don't
I
know.
think this is. These conversations are hard. They're difficult because they cannot fully live in the realm of religion or science. There has to be some meeting or understanding of the two of those things, and it's very difficult for us to navigate these without conversations about history and culture, ethics and morality, our value systems, our families of origin, how we were raised, how we grew up, how we view life in the environment. Like that, it pulls together so many. Necessarily pulls together so many different disciplines and parts of ourself and the world around us to try to come to a place where we say this is where I have comfort. And I think that that's the important point is, yeah, we would love to look at the Bible or to look at science and say I have 100% comfort that this is when life begins. I have 100% comfort that this is when abortion is acceptable and this is when abortion isn't acceptable. To have the black and white on these things would be great, but we can't do that. And whenever we try to do that, I think we fail. And this is one of the reasons why I think the Bible doesn't do this for us, is because it can't be done. It's an impossible task. And part of the point, and Pete Enns gets into this in several of his books, how the Bible actually works, and several of his others, is it's not why it's there. The conversation itself, the use of wisdom, is the point on these things.
Yeah, I think compassion too. I think one of the things I hear a lot from abolitionists or really passionate pro-lifers is like, if abortion were to happen, like the mother, father deserve death. It's and there is no compassion in for a reason to have. Most sane pro-lifers, I think, would say it gets tough. If the life of the mother is dependent upon this
Can I just say
abortion.
there will be fewer and fewer sane pro-lifers
That's
out there.
true.
It's
That's true.
becoming.
But the lack of compassion is what gets me. It's like, isn't don't we serve a God of compassion? Even if you think they're sinning and they're a murderer, like the lack of compassion I hear towards in this realm is just so appalling to me. Anyways,
Yeah, well, there are a lot of us who we want the compassionate God whenever we mess up, and we want the angry, vengeful God who throws people into hell whenever other people mess up. And I think that that's the difficulty, is we minimize our own sin nature and we maximize everybody else's sin nature, and the things that I don't struggle with are unimportant to God, or the things that I struggle with are unimportant to God, and the things that I don't struggle with are the things that God cares about the most. The fact isn't lost on me that an overwhelming majority of those people who truly care about abortion being sinful are people who don't struggle with abortion. Men.
yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
But
Yeah,
let's talk about gun control.
yeah,
Who are primarily the people who struggle with that sin? Men.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I know that I just made a whole lot of stereotypes there, and I just pissed off a whole bunch of progressives and liberals. gender categorizing people on the basis of abortion and firearms. But in general, I think, there's something to be said that the largest proponents against gun control are men, and the largest proponents for abortion are men as well. Um,
Well, yeah. I mean, men want women just. I mean, let's be honest. These pro-lifers, a lot of it, they want women to be silent and robots and their property again. They want to go back
yeah,
to, you
get rid
know,
of the 19th or the 25th, which is women's
yeah,
voting rights.
women's suffrage. They want women to suffer and rule over them, and they think it's biblical to do that. And so,
Lots of things are biblical. That doesn't mean they're godly.
yeah, yeah, and they want to own women's bodies, you know, and it's sad. It's sad. They want to own the world, rule the world. It goes back to power. Like we started this podcast, is it all started with a power play, right? And many are still on that power play today and want that power, and will do whatever they can and it takes to get that power.
Yeah, it's becoming
Um,
heated because the tides are turning. I think on this topic, the tides are turning. I think Republicans are seeing that their ability to control and to win on this topic, the days are probably numbered. If you look at, by age, people who are proponents of abortion, the younger you get, the more people percentage wise who see no issue with abortion. And so, Trump, for all of his failures, is smart in moving the needle on abortion towards some level of acceptance. And, it'll be interesting to see if evangelicals fall in line. Some people have abandoned him for it, but a lot of other people have kind of just nuanced it and explained it away and still said, well, you still can't vote anyway other than Republican, even though Trump now says, they're holding their breath. I hear people say, well, we assume that once he gets in office, he's going to go back, to being fully against, abortion. Yeah, I mean, you don't know Trump.
yeah,
if you
yeah.
if you think you have any idea what he's going to do.
Trump's like, where's the wind blowing today? That's where Trump goes. Yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting because yeah, the tide is changing. I think I think younger evangelicals, younger Christians are getting smarter, or maybe I shouldn't say it like that. They're learning to think more for themselves. I think definitely this next generation likes to think for themselves. They like to process things. They don't just believe them because father or mother tell them, which I did growing up. A lot of us did, and generations before even more so. And I think this generation, less and less. Man, my kids argue and fight on debate with different things a lot, and it's interesting because they're appalled. My kids are appalled that anyone would vote for Donald Trump. They think he's a caricature. They don't even know the political issues. They just see how they call him rude or disrespectful, um, and they're surprised when I tell them, yeah, probably half the people or more support him, and they're like, what? How could It's like, how could you support that? Which is
100%,
fascinating.
100% of the people in your family, or my family.
Yeah,
If I'm talking to my kids,
yeah,
100% of the people in
yeah,
your
yeah,
family, half the people you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
but 100. Well, and we
yeah.
live in the South, so it's probably more than half of the people they know.
More, yeah. Yeah, you're in a red state, but um, my town's pretty red, so yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I
I
think
think,
what you do with what the Bible says is frankly up to you and the Spirit. I think, for me, and I think you'd probably agree with this as well, it's just important to be honest as we can be about what the text does say and about what the text doesn't say. I try to not speak a lot about the heart of God on any issue, but I do think, and you said it well with compassion, I do think that we can say that the heart of God is one of compassion and one of loving your neighbor and one of healing and redeeming, whatever and wherever that looks like. Um, but I think it's very clear to say that that does not imply, and neither does the Bible, that abortion is wrong in all circumstances. Doesn't mean the heart of
Yeah.
God. Doesn't mean the heart of God is in the Democrat Party. It doesn't mean that the heart of God is in all of those children, being lost or being aborted. But I do think that it's a very nuanced conversation, and we're not with those stories and with those women and with those families whenever they go through that. Um, and I think we should try harder to be there, with compassion and with love and with listening and with care rather than with judgment.
Yeah. It's a good word. Good place to land it. I like that. Um, so yeah, questions, comments, thoughts, let us know. We'd love to hear feedback,
Yeah,
pushback.
I've been hearing a lot of it the
Um,
last few days, by email,
yeah,
by Instagram, whenever somebody gets blocked or doesn't like it, what I say on Twitter. I don't know
they
if you get
find
this
you.
as well. They find me somewhere. They find me somewhere else. Yeah, the newest one is, posting sham reviews on Amazon. Somebody gave me this book,
Yeah.
and this guy believes in abortion. One rating. I don't even mention abortion in the book. I don't think. If you even go to the, I'm actually going to do it sitting right here. I don't think if you go to the index of the book, I don't think abortion is even in there as a
I
word.
don't think. No.
Nope. Doesn't talk about abortion at all.
Yeah.
You didn't read the book, did you, liar? Why am I
I
shocked?
remember. Yeah, I had one guy get so mad at me, he blocked me, and he kept calling the church here and
Oh
leaving
my
messages, and
gosh.
we yeah
Oh.
we kept ignoring him, and finally, what I think he was trying to like prove a point that he was, I don't know, but he sent our church $1,000, um, and I was
Wow.
like, I think he is being passive aggressive, but I'll take his passive aggressive $1,000.
And then you'll take the address off the check and submit a restraining order.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, it was so funny.
Uh,
So
you
funny.
know, it's a volatile issue. People have been spun up, but it's not God who's doing the spinning up on this. It's it's politics and pastors and churches that are trying to control. It's not the spirit of God that's spinning you up on the issue of abortion against people to act that way. It's just not.
No, no, no. I think this is that one issue though. Like I was just gonna say, like most people not online might talk about things differently, and I think that's true with most issues you and I bring up online. But this one, I think in person, we would get shouted out. I mean, it's such a volatile issue that people are so passionate about. I mean, and like check yourself, right? Check yourself in this issue. Like, where's your heart? Like, are you going to be willing to have a Christian discussion and about it, or are you just gonna start screaming and throwing your signs up and
Yeah, I will say, I think that gun control, LGBTQ, I was trying to think through all of the things that I've inflamed people over. I do think that the pro-life abortion conversation has yielded the nastiest, um, per capita. It's yielded the nastiest responses, and people, over what that I've ever done. Yeah, it's far and away a different tone and tenor on this topic than any other issue from Christians.
yeah, for sure. All right.
All right. Do you got any news, or we're gonna hit to the after show?
Uh well, the one news point was just the DNC. Um, you know, I think as I look at the different conventions, there's definitely a different tone, and I think it's the personality of Donald Trump that's driving it. So Donald Trump, his tone is very much attack, demean, belittle, and he has won in the past, and he's seeking to win now by drawing lines in the sand around personality, around issues, and have people choose, and that's how he's built his base, and he's continued to do that. And the Democrats, I think, have been smart in the tone. At least last night when I was watching, was very much let's unify, let's come together, let's love each other, let's love our neighbor, whether they're from a red state or a blue state, or they're Democrat, Republican. Let's be unified. Kind of harkening back to Obama, um, and some of his talking points, which I found fascinating. I think the Democrats responded that way because of Trump. I think it's a natural kind of good, good way to react to that, rather than rolling around in the mud with him a bit, which I think the Democrats did kind of last cycle, and I think Biden even last night he was. You can't beat Trump at Trump
No, I was
like
going to say, if you get him rolling around the mud with
yeah
Trump, yeah, you're
like
gonna.
like Biden
There's no way.
Biden tried that, and Biden kept doing that, and
I mean, he's
it
from New
just fell
York. He's done.
flat.
I mean, you're not going to
Yeah,
outdo.
yeah,
You're not going to
no.
You're not going to outsass Trump on stuff. You're not going to beat him at
Anyways,
that
I
game.
just noticed it. Yeah, I just noticed this clear, distinct, different tone and messaging, which I found refreshing.
Do you think it'll work?
I don't know, but I think that's where our country's headed. I texted you this week. I think some of the younger candidates coming up have a more positive and unifying tone. They are stark differences on the issues. Don't get me wrong, but I think I think as Obama would say, better days are ahead. I tend to agree with that. I think our country's kind of tired of the Trump thing, and even
Yeah,
if he were to,
I hope so. I hope that the Republican Party will divest themselves of Trump and the Trumpites and all of the people who are trying to mirror and mimic Trump because they see that it worked for him, and it has worked for some of the others too in this environment. If they can jettison MAGA, the MAGA mentality, from the party, um, I think maybe the GOP survives, if
yeah,
possible. But I don't, and I think Tim Walz has been a interesting kind of experiment in this idea that you put forward, because who knows who the heck Tim Walz is, right? I mean, I
yeah,
didn't. He was the last person I would have picked on the list, but the kindness, just the
yeah,
rallying around it, the personality, and how people just kind of fallen in love, maybe not with his policy, but just that he's a nice guy, seemingly, is
yeah,
extraordinary, and it gives me hope that maybe we're not headed down a road where both parties and everybody who's involved in politics has to one up the Trump style in order to survive or win or fundraise. I don't think that's, especially from a Christian perspective, I don't think that that's healthy, and that's not a future I want to live in this nation. And I hope that we can redeem ourselves from that. And I think Christians, we've got to be a part of calling that out and rebuking it, wherever it happens in either party, because there has been some, I think, Democrats who have kind of fallen into that as well, and I'm glad to see that what I saw, at least in the convention, and in just the promotion and the stumping for Harris and Walz, has not gone there, and I hope they don't.
yeah. So I get for me, as a Christian, it's nice to see, like, that's what I desire. I desire to see two parties debating it out in a healthy way, debating the issues, but knowing that we're coming together. Like, as a American citizen, I want to see my candidates, keep America the unity in America front and center, and then we can have our debates. We're always going to have our debates, but to me, that just postures Christ a little bit better in our, in our society, and then hopefully we, as Christian leaders and pastors, we can do our thing and not always have to tell people this politician is not very Christian like. Hopefully it's a little less of that. We'll see. We'll see. Obviously, there's a lot of people that like the way Trump does his thing, and a lot of them call themselves Christians. Um, so hopefully that changes, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
Unfortunately, probably the only way for it to change is for it to continue to fail in the ballot box.
Yeah.
And sadly, a lot of those people have have been voted into, positions since Trump. But hopefully, the Republican Party, the U.S. can reverse that trend.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think the GOP has followed the mentality of evangelicalism that used to be big tent, and we've said this, where lots of people with varying and diverse opinions can come together and be a part of this thing called evangelicalism, has shrunk to this. You have to believe this very fundamentalist, very specific
Yeah.
list
Well,
of
you're right.
things, or else
Yeah.
you're out. And unfortunately, the GOP has done these. They've modeled that and done the exact same thing. With MAGA, you have to believe this very small list of things, or you're out. The Republican Party has lost some of its greatest minds and greatest leaders over the last few years, because they've literally been pushed out of the party, called rhinos, Republicans in name only. Now it's chinos, Christians in name only. It's being so it's a noose around the neck of the GOP, and it's a noose around the neck of evangelicalism, and both of them are being strangled to death. And frankly, if it continues, they both deserve to die.
Yeah. Well, they're both going to have to die, at least as we know them now. Well, they don't have to, I guess. They could keep going.
If there's to be any health in the future, they have to die.
Yeah. But I was encouraged by what I saw, that at least a major party with lots of research dollars behind it, they didn't make this decision because they love Jesus. They made this decision because the money and the trends told them that, which for me, I felt encouraged, that I think people are fed up. Anyways, so that was my news bit. And yeah.
All right, let's go. All right, here we are back in the after show, where Matt and I spent a couple of minutes talking about fitness, where we are, how we're doing, the good, the bad, the ugly. Are you good?
Last week was a pretty good week overall. So yeah, back to it. Back mostly on the diet. I had a couple rough days over the weekend, but getting back to that.
We'll allow that.
Yeah, back in the CrossFit gym. I'm actually after we hang up, because my kids started cross country practice this week. I missed CrossFit this morning, so I'm going to go hit the muscle gym this afternoon and
nice
get a good pump in.
You know how my heart beats strong for the muscle gym.
Yeah. So I need some kind of goal. Like, I've been looking around. I need something to shoot for, like you've been doing, I think.
Do a show, man. Come on. Do bodybuilding. Do powerlifting. I don't know. Do something.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
I don't know.
No marathons.
Do a competition.
But yeah, some kind of competition.
Triathlon.
So I've been looking around.
I don't know. Do an Ironman.
Yeah.
I could see you doing the Ironman.
I've been looking around, so that's, I guess, a good step for me. I need, I
You're a
I like to
competitor.
lift. It's just yeah, it's something I always love doing. But yeah, I need a target. And I
Yeah.
remember when I was at my best in the gym, it's when I had a target in front of me. So I need that. Yep. But
That will
overall,
be
good.
I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna give you 2 weeks.
All right.
No, it's a great
All right,
idea.
Coach Kevin.
You're a competitor.
No, you're
You're really good at competitions. Whenever you, like you say, whenever you get something in front of you, um, it's always easier to stick to things. And
yeah. I want to win. There's just something in me. I want to win.
it's
In fact,
that
my
eight.
wife got mad at me. She got mad at me the other day because you just always want to win. Sorry.
Well, when you're always right, you have to win. You can't lose and be right. So those two things go together.
Yeah. Yeah. How about well, November 2nd, right?
Yeah, November 2nd. Yeah, which is what, like 11 weeks away, something 12 weeks away. So yeah, dropped the calories again this week. Changed one of my 5 meals to fish from chicken. So it's like this breath of fresh air where I'm not eating chicken and rice all day. Once I get fish and rice, but he was like, yeah, we're gonna switch to the fish because the fish stays in your stomach less time, so you're gonna feel less full.
What?
It's like because we got to work on flattening out that we got to work on flattening out that stomach. I'm like, yes, I know. You're telling me you can't see my abs, right? I can see them. Isn't that good enough? Yeah. So things are good. The weight continues to go down. I think I lost like 5 or 6 pounds last week, which was a lot. Like two
Oh
inches,
wow.
like
Wow.
2 inches off of the waist. I was like, that's
Wow, that's a big jump.
yeah, that's crazy. Seeing the difference in the mirror, and fortunately, strength has held. But I feel like really really small, and I know that's just going to keep going. But that's like that's the bodybuilder thing. You look big in pictures, but you're actually like really really small and emaciated, and it's not healthy. And if you really look too closely, it's just kind of disgusting looking. But like you said, it's a challenge. It's something to do. So it's
Yeah.
nice to have that target and be heading towards it. And I'm very thankful that it's my first time through, so I don't know what to expect, because it's like what they say, boiling a frog in water. You just slowly turn up the heat. That's what the coach. Just don't tell me, coach.
Yeah.
Just week to week. Tell me what we're doing. But I did well enough that he gave me another cheat meal. Right now I don't get any cheat meals, but he gave me another cheat meal. So Sally's like, "Where do you want to go?" It's like, I want a burger, like a burger and fries. And so she named a few places that were like fast food burgers. I'm like, no, I want to go to a steakhouse. I want to get like the thickest burger that I can, like the biggest fries that I can. Like this is big. So
So you're at the point where he has to give you cheat meals.
Yeah, I'm at the point where he has to give me cheat meals. Yeah, and he calls it, replenishing my glycogen, whatever. I can't say the word. Stores.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So he looks at where I am for the week, and he says, yes, you can have one meal to cheat. Which I was taking like 3 or 4 cheat meals before. I was like, well, I split it up, like I did a third of the cheat meal on this meal and a third of the cheat meal on this meal and a third of the cheat meal on that meal, but they were full meals. I did sneak half a cookie though this week, but I was honest with him and I told him I snuck half a cookie. So he was like, I'll forgive you, but don't do it again.